Thank you, everybody, for being here. Today we have Chiara Dalle Nogare from Italy. Chiara is professor at the University of Brescia. She's specialized in cultural economics, this is right, but she also works in tourist economics. And today is presenting a paper, a joint paper with Raffaele Scuderi that is not still here with us, but he will arrive, on the impact of COVID in tourism. Is it right, Chiara?
Perdona?
The paper is on the impact of COVID on the tourist activity in general, no?
On perception, okay? On perceptions.
And perceptions.
From
okay, thank you. Yes. Thank you very much, Chiara, for being with us. And you have 40 minutes.
Thank you, Gabriel. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I would very much like to be in South America, not just talk to you.
You're welcome. You're welcome for the future.
I've never been to South America. Me gustaría también hablaros en español, pero como decía antes, me falta competencia en el idioma. Entonces, if you don't mind, I'll switch to English. And okay, so this is joint work. The paper I'm presenting today is joint work with Raffaele Scuderi, a longtime co-author and friend. And what we investigate is safety perception at a tourist destination in the COVID era. The focus is actually on the degree of tourist satisfaction. As far as the anti-contagion measures taken at the destinations are concerned. In fact, as I'll argue later, the degree of satisfaction is in our context strictly related to safety perception, or if you want to use a different terminology, perception of safety, health safety risks. What we want to try and see is the determinants of this satisfaction or perception, though I must say that this is an empirical paper using models that do not actually are not actually able to identify causality. What we in fact use here is a milder terminology. We talk about factors associated to, so not causing, but associated to a higher degree of tourist satisfaction. The database we use is very interesting, we think. It originated by the holders of a destination card, which is called Trentino Gas Card. Trentino is actually the destination of interest. And I will tell you about this destination in the next slide, and about the card in the next slide. The period of reference is summer 2020. So it is the first tourist season after the first dramatic wave of the COVID pandemic in Italy. Let me remind you that Italy was very badly hit by COVID in spring 2020. Actually, it was the first country in Europe to be struck by the pandemic, and it was a very dramatic time over here, with hospitals full of people and not being able to cope with the disease, no vaccines available, the media covering the pandemic extensively, and people actually having to stay at home all the time because schools were closed, most industries could not operate, So people were in a very poor situation, both psychologically and in every other respect in the spring months of 2020. Then finally, around middle of the month of May, the lockdown was lifted, and people were finally allowed to travel across regions, not just across regions, but across municipalities, which was forbidden before. And tourism started to recover. But we have reasons to believe that it was a time in which a lot of people were still very touched by all that had been going on, and therefore health safety was probably for them an issue, an important issue, a much more important issue than before. This is at least what we hypothesized before dealing with this data. Let me say that we believe that the added value of our contribution is that we consider real tourists, people who actually traveled in these troublesome times. I want to stress this because a lot of contributions have been out recently on the impact of the pandemic on tourists' behaviors and perceptions. But most of them actually use survey data from online, from people contacted by the researchers through the internet. So it's actually would-be tourists, so to say, while we believe that actually real tourists make a difference because it is difficult to imagine themselves in a situation you don't know, especially in times such as the one we're living with a pandemic going on, in which you don't really know what the destination will be looking like, and your perceptions and behaviors will be like consequently. We are lucky, we have a lot of data, about 27,000 data. They refer to Italian respondents to a survey that was administered to the holders of the TGC, and we use logit and ordered logit models in our investigation. Now, briefly about Trentino. Trentino is this region in the north of Italy you see here, close to the border with Austria and Switzerland. It's a mountain, a lake and mountain destination. Also having a few nice small cities and towns full of heritage, such as Trento, where I'm talking to you from. I'm actually from there and I live there. The Trentino region is actually designed from the point of view of how tourism activities are concerned there. The organization is such that you have different tourist districts, and these districts are interesting in that each and every one of them has a clearly predominant type of attraction. So you have mountain districts, you have lake districts, and you have city districts, and we exploit, as I will make clear later, this type of variability. The Trentino Gas Card is a smart destination card that has been proposed to every tourist coming to Trentino since 2014. It is offered to all tourists, excluding second homes, in all tourist districts of Trentino. Interestingly, it is included in the tourist tax, so this excludes the case of selection due to purchase, which is a nice feature because it gives origin to an unbiased sample in this respect. It is a family card or a group card, so you have one for each group of tourists, and attractions are discounted or for free for the holders. The data collected through the card are the following: some characteristics of the tourist group, the type of accommodation facility that issued the card, and the district in which it is located, date of arrival and departure. You also have data on its use by the holder, but we don't use that information in this specific paper. Typically, Trentino DMO administers one online survey to Trentino Gas Card holders at the end of each season. Specifically, the survey is on the holders that were in Trentino in the last season. So we consider the survey referring to summer 2020. The response rate in this case was a little bit less than 20%. In particular, the question we are interested in is the following. Considering the current global need to pay special attention to health-related risks, how do you value the organization and hospitality you found in Trentino? So you see that it is both about health safety measures taken at accommodation facilities and attractions, public transports, etc. The possible answers were 3: not adequate, I expected more; adequate, and more than adequate. Now, so we take these answers and we argue that they may depend on some determinants. These determinants are actually determinants of the personal perception of contagion risk, because we believe that in our context, this evaluation of safety measures, the satisfactions, the degree of satisfaction as to the safety measures is the same as a personal perception of contagion risk. This perception is in turn possibly associated to or driven by some determinants, some of which are referred to personal experience before the holiday, and some of which are referred to personal experience during the holiday. So personal experience before the holiday, possibly conditioning personal perception of contagion risk, has to do, for instance, with pandemic risk at place of residence. If you see that in your neighborhood a lot of people got infected, or your friends have, or you yourself have been infected, clearly your perception of health risk is higher. On the other hand, you have other elements referring to personal experience during the holiday. For instance, tourist districts may have different features, making them more or less likely to be crowded, and so we should consider them. And other aspects may be related to the characteristics of the accommodation facility. For instance, the degree of privacy you can enjoy in them, like having to share toilets and bathrooms, such as in camping sites clearly is different from being on a holiday in a self-catering accommodation. So our paper contributes to the literature on health risk perception and precisely on contagion risk perception, and actually the possible determinants we derived from reading some of this literature. For instance, the idea that perceived infectability is positively correlated to the perception of crowdedness comes from reading Koch et al., a recent contribution on analysis of tourism research. While the focus on contagion in one's place of residence is present in Boto Garcia and Leoni, another contribution you see here mentioned. Actually, these authors explore its association with travel intentions, while we consider its association with risk perception. And finally, the idea that the accommodation facilities may make a difference comes from Naumov et al., and actually also other more recent contributions. But let me come again to this idea that the degree of satisfaction is in our context the same as personal perception of contagion risk, because one of your, you may not be convinced about this, and you may argue that evaluation or satisfaction is not only determined by tourist-related characteristics or determinants, but also by rules-related determinants. Well, in fact, if you have, if you consider these different destinations characterized by different rules in place, clearly, the stricter the rule, the higher the evaluation of the health safety measures. But as I anticipated before, there's no exploitable variability in our context in this respect, because the anti-contagion measures were actually the same all over the places in Italy in summer 2020, because the rules were decided by the national government. The protocols for public service attraction, public transport attractions and facilities, accommodation facilities were all determined centrally by central government, so no variability there. Clearly, also the effectiveness in the implementation may vary from place to place, and the compliance to anti-contagion rules. And this may derive from the fact that different destinations or different places may be characterized by different degrees of civicness of the residents, residents being both hotel owners and people living there in general. In this respect, once again, we have no variability in our context, because Trentino is known by the social capital literature to be a place that's very homogeneous in this respect. And by the way, it boasts some of the highest values for social capital, the different measures of social capital, as testified by many contributions on social capital, taking Italy in consideration. So once again, we are left with the idea that the evaluation of health safety measures is basically driven by personal perception of contagion risk, and what matters is therefore the type of tourist district, the type of accommodation, the pandemic risk at place of residence, and then, of course, insofar as we have some personal or group traits, we should use them too. Here's our empirical strategy then. The model is very simple, and you see it here. Y, our dependent variable, is the evaluation of the implemented anti-contagion measures taken at the destination by the Trentino Gas Card holder I. This is made dependent by different explanatory variables. We have a vector of the characteristic of the tourist district where the card was issued, a set of dummies capturing the type of accommodation facility that issued the card, and a number of group characteristics of the TGC holder. Of course, we have a set of controls, and of course, epsilon is the error term. The distribution of our answers is not very common. We expected a lot of more dissatisfied tourists, but actually there were very, very few. The majority were satisfied, but also the more than satisfied were not a negligible number. We thought it made sense to first analyze our data after aggregating answers B and C so as to isolate the determinants of dissatisfaction. And in this case, we used logit models. Then in a second stage of our investigation, we wanted to exploit all the information available and therefore considered answers B and C separately. And in this case, we used ordered logit models. And for the technicalities of this, I would very much like Raffaele to be here because I'm more into the refining of the research question, but maybe he's here, I'm not sure. So first vector of explanatory variables, tourist district characteristics. What we wanted to test is the following two propositions. The first is basically that beaches are more conducive of crowdedness than mountains, and therefore staying at a lake district is more likely to be associated with a higher perception of contagion risk, and therefore a lower evaluation or satisfaction as to the implemented anti-contagion measures. And to capture this possible effect, we use dummies for lake tourist districts and city tourist districts too, though we have no prior really on city, especially considering that the cities here considered are quite small ones. So it's not, they're not places of, they're generally not places where crowding is common. Proposition 2 instead states that a strong tourist vocation for a district is conducive of crowdedness and increases therefore the likelihood for a tourist not to be fully satisfied or to perceive a lower level of safety. By tourist vocation, we mean here basically number of tourist beds, and we therefore use log of tourist beds as proxy for intensity of tourist vocation. Basically, it's about the carrying capacity of a place when an area has to is full not just of its residents but also of tourists. Basically, crowding is more probable. Then we consider the accommodation type. And as I said before, a type of accommodation guaranteeing privacy increases a tourist's likelihood to be fully satisfied with the measures implemented, that is to perceive a lower health risk than camping site or hostels or mountain huts. And therefore we use hotel and self-catering dummies, and the reference category is a composite category, including the 3 other accommodation facility types, where camping sites make the most of the category. Finally, as far as the tourist-related variables, our target variable is COVID incidence in the province of residence. So number of COVID cases over population at the provincial level. Italy is divided into about 100 provinces, and there's a lot of variance here to exploit, because the first wave of COVID was very uneven in Italy. COVID was very strong in some parts of north of Italy, not so strong in the center part of Italy, and almost inexistent in the south. So very different situation with respect to now. Other personal traits that we consider is the number of members of the tourist group and the presence of children. Actually, these are the only 2 that the card records. So we are limited in this respect, especially because we don't know the sex of who's answering, and we do not know the age. Our controls are the following. We use a weekly time trend to account for the distance from the peak of the pandemic, which was between April and March. The summer season we consider started, I think the first tourist card was issued on June the 10th. Then we use month dummies to account for differences in occupancy rates. That's very important because in Italy, summer months are very different one from the other in this respect, especially in mountain areas, with August being the peak of the season and June and September not so crowded, definitely not so crowded. Then we used a length of stay variable constructed from the date of arrival and date of departure data recorded by the card. And the idea here is that the more you stay, the higher the probability you come across a context of any kind, attractions, public transport, etc., in which you do not feel safe. And finally, we used region of origin dummies. So in Italy, we have, as I told you, around 100 provinces and 20 regions. So regions are in turn divided into provinces. We thought it important to control for regions for a very specific reason. The health service in Italy is not national, but it is organized by regional governments. And this means that the efficiency with which local hospitals coped with the first wave of the pandemic probably depended also on the type of hospital organizations that was confronting this challenge. So we thought it important to account for differences in efficiency of local hospitals. So results. First, our logic models, accounting or trying to see what's associated to higher probability to be satisfied vis-a-vis the alternative answer not to be satisfied. Proposition 1 states that type of destination makes a difference, but as you see here in model 1, which is the one on the full sample, we do not find any significance for the estimated coefficients of the city and lake dummies. Proposition 2, stating that tourist vocation may make a difference, is confirmed because, as you see, the significance at 5% here, and log beds has the expected negative sign. So the more touristic an area, the less probable it is that I give an answer saying that I'm satisfied. As far as the type of accommodation is concerned, hotel is very significant and has a positive sign as expected, but self-catering accommodation actually is non-significant. Incidents, surprisingly, we do not find any significance ever, which is very, very puzzling, or at least we find puzzling. These results we checked in the different subsamples of city, lake, and mountain districts, and in the subsamples only considering people staying at hotels, at self-catering accommodations, and the third category of accommodation facilities. As you see, the results on the whole sample are mainly driven by what we find in mountain districts, but that's normal because this is by far the largest subsample. Actually, also in the estimates where we distinguish as far as the depth variance is concerned between being satisfied and being very satisfied, and therefore we use ordered logit models. We do not find a lot of difference with what we found before. You see here in the first column that once again, type of destination doesn't seem to matter, while tourist beds are very significant and have a negative sign. Once again, as far as accommodation facility is concerned, hotels have an estimated coefficient that's very significant and positive as expected, while apartments have not, and incidence is never significant. We find 5% significance here for lake when we consider the subsample of tourists staying at hotels, and the sign is the one we expected. So lake destinations trigger higher probability of a lower degree of satisfaction or a higher perception of health risk, but only if we consider people staying at hotels. So summarizing and trying to systematize all these conclusions, currently what comes out from our analysis is that the type of destination does not explain dissatisfaction. And the only thing we find here is that conditional to not being dissatisfied, a lake destination increases the probability to be very satisfied only for tourists staying at hotels. So proposition 1, we only have weak evidence. We tried to find some explanation, and what we could think of is that perhaps what we think of beach destinations in this context are not actually only beach destinations. The most important tourist area with a lake in Italy is the upper part of the Garda Lake. You may have heard of. It's a very nice alpine lake in the north of Italy. Actually, the north part of Garda Lake attracts both beach lovers and sports tourists, especially climbers, cyclists, and windsurfers. You see here the pictures are found of these people in the area of Riva del Garda and Torbole, the two municipalities belonging to the province of Trento, and therefore Trentino, that we consider. So sports tourists go to the beach only occasionally, so basically, even if we think that it makes sense to think of beach lovers as possibly more feeling uneasy because of a perception of health safety risks, if you don't go to the beaches, well, you enjoy your holiday and that's it. And notice that these sports tourists on Lake Garda and other lakes in Trentino are more likely to stay at camping sites at apartments because they are younger and perhaps not so wealthy. And this is probably the reason why we do find some evidence of a difference in the answers of those staying at hotels and those staying at different type of accommodations as to the influence of the type of destination on their satisfaction as to the health safety measures taken at the destination. Coming to tourism vocation intensity, the second measure we consider in terms of characteristics of the destination that is conducive of crowdedness. Actually, here we do find that proposition 2 is confirmed because log beds explains both dissatisfaction and degree of satisfaction in the ordered logit model. And with a negative sign, so the expected sign, meaning more tourist beds, less safety perceived on average. Or higher probability to answer that you're not very satisfied. As far as the type of accommodation facility, here proposition 2 is only partially confirmed because we do find that hotel accommodation facilities make it more likely to be satisfied with respect not to be satisfied, and to be highly satisfied, conditional on being satisfied. But we do not find the same for self-catering accommodation facilities. And we argue here that probably what matters more is not the degree of privacy you can enjoy, because otherwise you would find that self-catering accommodation facilities would be top. But probably it's about the professional management of these facilities, as Naumov in the contribution I mentioned already pointed out. Since self-catering accommodation facilities are often run not so professionally, think of B&B type of accommodations, in which usually people involved do this as a second job and so on. Well, probably they're not so able to communicate the implementation of the health safety protocols to their to their guests, and this may make a difference. But the most puzzling evidence to us is the fact that we never find incidents of COVID incidents in the province of origin significant. And thinking about the possible reasons for this insignificance, statistical insignificance, we think we found two possible explanations. The first one is that a province is probably too vast an area to capture a close to home effect. If I believe that my perception of health safety risk depends on my personal experience at home, well, home is home and its neighborhood, or it's the city around my home, but probably a province is too vast an area. And as long as provincial data are not the same as data on smaller areas comprised in provinces, this may make a difference. Unfortunately, we do not have COVID incidents at municipal level. Possible alternative explanation, but really it doesn't have to be an alternative, possibly it's just complementary. It is that there may be an antagonist effect here at work. In the provinces highly affected by COVID, probably only the least risk averse dared taking a holiday in summer 2020. This means that the self-selection into the tourist status was different in COVID-stricken provinces and in provinces in which COVID was very mild or was not there at all. And this may have driven a possible situation by which those coming from highly affected provinces were actually less risk averse and dared and therefore by definition they did not feel the risks of a holiday in terms of health safety in the same way as tourists, the average tourist coming from a province where COVID was not so severe. Actually, we tried with interaction terms to see if incidents could come out significant at some point in time. We were not very lucky in this respect. We tried to interact it with destination type and with the accommodation type. Sometimes in the ordered logic models, interaction terms with accommodation type dummies are significant, but not in the ordered logic models, in the logic models. But the sign is not always in line with expectations if we consider the full impact, meaning both the interaction and the incidence coefficient. So if you have some ideas of how we could improve our analysis in this respect, you're more than welcome, and please give us a clue. Finally, we tried some robustness checks, like the use of district's cable car capacity instead of log beds, because this is a place where we have a lot of cable cars, and cable cars of very different capacity, ranging from 150 to 20. Cable cars are a proxy for tourist vocation, basically, Also, they are themselves a place where contagion could take place, though there were protocols in force and you could not fill the gondolas. You could only have 80% of the capacity used. We found a lot of significance for this other proxy of tourism vocation, possibly because of this second aspect of cable car capacity, there being conducive of contagion in principle. The only other difference with respect to significance of the other variables in these estimates is that the lake dummy turns significant also in the ordered logic model full sample, meaning that over here, if we place cable car capacity instead of log beds, lake turns significant, just like for those staying at hotels. But this is valid also for the full sample. We also changed our proxy for COVID impact at the provincial level, considering death rates and the absolute number of cases, but nothing really changes. We used number of children instead of a dummy presence of children. We tried partial specifications clearly. We clustered standard errors at the regional level, meaning region of origin, and tourist district level. And we also ran OLS, but all stayed almost the same. So basically, here are our conclusions. Apparently, what our data tell us is that a strong tourist vocation for a district is associated to a high probability of this. Sorry. Sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. A strong tourist vocation is associated to a higher probability of dissatisfaction and conditional on being satisfied, a lower degree of satisfaction, that is lower safety perception. This is clearly something that we could call a crowdedness effect, and this means that what common sense tell us makes sense, even if we consider data coming from real tourists, that is marginal destinations that are not so top, have a competitive advantage to exploit these days. Second evidence, staying at a hotel is positively related with satisfaction or safety perception, which means probably that professional management and communication of implemented safety measures make a difference. This is important for the industry, I guess. And finally, as I made clear and mentioned several times, to our surprise, COVID incidents in tourists' province of origin or residence, better to say, appear not to be an important driver. We think that more investigation is needed in this respect, and I will be happy to hear about your suggestions now in this respect and in any other respect you want to help us. So this is it. This is me in the Dolomites.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chiara. Very nice presentation and very interesting data set. I'm very interested in the study. So we open now for comments and questions, and we have Miriam that
yes, I have to go. Then that's why I have my coat on. I have only 5 minutes. Yes, because if not, I will be late. I have to make very important thing today. But thank you a lot for the presentation. I really love the way you do and your data. I have one or two comments. First of all, I have a very interesting question for me. Do this guest card have the record? Which are the attractions that people visit? Do you have this information also?
We do have this information, and the nice thing about this destination card is that it is an all-comprehensive card. It's not just about museums, it's not just about public transport, but it's about both museums and public transport and attractions of very many different types, also discounts at local little shops and stuff like this.
Very nice, because we are working with Rodolfo Baccio, as you know, in cards and visitor flows, and it's going to be a future analysis. It's a joint analysis. But I have to say two things, basically.
Raffaele?
I beg your pardon? I have to...
Raffaele?
Yes, go ahead.
No, Raffaele and I already had an article using the data coming from this destination card and considering the actual use of this card.
Do you make the analysis of visitor flows?
No, we clustered them according to the sequence of activities they were into.
Oh, yeah, it's almost that. I would be very happy if I have the reference of the paper. Thank you. And then what I have to tell you is that probably the problem is that camping and self-catering is not really and such an homogeneous as we can think it is. I have worked in campings in La Charente in France. The use of camping during COVID, we only have campings data, and it depends of the kind of object that they were in the camping, that they were used or not. It means that camping is not homogeneous. When they have a mobile home, then there were things that everybody wants to have. And the same is in Parotellerie. We make a paper with Martin Falk where we show that it depends on the characteristics of the, when we work in Airbnb, of the Airbnb that they will be attracted of more during the pandemic. Then probably that's why you don't have any difference in these two things, because they are not really homogeneous.
I absolutely agree with you, although I must say that motorhomes in Italy tend to go to dedicated parking places. They
yes,
don't...
I'm sorry, it is, I don't know, I am in a hurry, excuse me, is that it is not the word that they used to have. You know, you can have a kind of containers that they're fixed in camping. That's what I mean. It's a kind of container that they are fixed, just a house, but made in containers. And so this
is much more like a resort than we believe it is, because tents are not so many. That's what you want to say.
Okay. In La Charente is very important. They have a huge number, and these were very sick. The people who want to have that. And the other thing that was interesting for me is that the situation in the place they come. It seems that it is not relevant, and this is just an hypothesis that join your hypothesis also. Probably people were so keen to have holidays that they were so confident in the purity of the destination of Trentino that they override the situation to look forward and go there, you see?
Yeah.
This is probably one, but who knows? Well, I have to go because if not, I will. Thank you very much, and thank you, and I would like to have the reference of your paper. Thank you all. Bye. Excuse me.
Ciao, Miriam. Thank you, Maria Jose. Excuse me.
Good morning. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Now, yes. Good morning, Chiara. Nice to meet you. Well, I would like to ask you something about the card, the Trentino Guest Card. You said that second home owners are excluded on this card. And I would like to ask you, how do you study, if you know about any study about second home owners there in Trentino, or not especially with respect to COVID, if you know any study about second homeowners in general. And how do you study this if you have no information?
Actually, no. It is an area that's very difficult to tackle, because actually, if it's your own property, you do not have to tell anyone you go to your home. What I can tell you is that in the first lockdown we had in spring 2020, we could not reach a second home if it was outside your region. Mm-hmm. And therefore, second home owners during spring 2020 couldn't come to Trentino. A lot of people coming from Lombardy, Veneto, own houses in Trentino, but they couldn't go. Mm-hmm. In summer 2020, they could. Mm-hmm. And for sure, many of them enjoyed their second home, since they couldn't go there for a long number of months during the springtime. But mm-hmm. Unfortunately, I think that there's no way you can collect data on that.
Mm. No. All right. It's difficult to include them in this card, no? What do you think is the reason that they are excluded?
The reason is that they don't pay the tourist tax.
All right.
So, I mean, you can actually buy a Trentino Guest Card if you're interested. Yes. But it's costly. And to my knowledge, nobody buys it unless you are staying at a hotel or a hotel that offers it to you, meaning it's not actually offering it to you. You pay the tax and it's included in the tax. That's the deal, you know.
Yes.
Because this is a self-sustaining project, meaning that by the tourist tax, the whole of the budget for the attraction, public transport, and museums is covered. So it's interesting in this respect, because there's no subsidiation. Mm-hmm. It runs. It's self-sustained. So through the tourist tax, you can offer all these things for free or prices.
Okay, thank you very much.
Gabriela, I don't hear you.
Ops. Victoria, please.
Hello, nice to meet you, Chiara. I really like your presentation. It's very, very interesting. We are working with Gabriel, Miriam, and Marianela and also in a paper who are studying also risk perception in tourism. And this work, your work is complemented. I really want to maybe interchange or make some conversation with you, because we are focusing in risk perception, but we are classifying the tourists, and we found different kind of tourists or different type of tourists making clusters, and they have different risk perceptions facing the same measures or the same problems. So it's very interesting because you focus on the other strategy, and I really like it. I congratulate you.
Yes, if you're interested, if you are working on risk perception, I think we should share some ideas about this very interesting topic, and I would like to know in which way it is complementary to what we do.
Yeah.
Gabriel.
Yeah, in particular, we have some results that are common results in the sense that how the people is willing to take the risk to go for tourism, for example. The study is completely different because what we did was a survey that and we collected data online at the beginning. The period is more or less the same because it was the beginning of the summer of the end of 2020 in Uruguay. Okay, so we have a published paper I will send you now the paper, Chiara. We have a published paper, and we are working on a second paper now. And we also have some data with the medium, the one with the because what we applied was a questionnaire that was first applied in Switzerland. Okay. No, we will share this, Chiara. In addition, we will present the paper in the workshop. We have a workshop in tourism next week.
Okay.
If not, Victoria sent to Chiara the invitation for the workshop and the program.
See if I can.
Do you have the email of Chiara, Victoria?
No, yes, I have it because this is. I think it's in the.
I think I forward you the email of
Yes.
Chiara that sent to Martin the.
Okay.
And, okay, so Victoria, please send to Chiara the paper, the published paper, the draft that we have of the second paper, and the program of the workshop.
Okay.
So the survey we consider is both on tourists and on non-tourists. Is just or it's only people who will be tourists or are tourists.
The potential tourists.
Yeah.
Potential
are potential tourists because what we asked was about the willingness to go for vacation.
Okay.
Okay, but wasn't in the hot period, let's say. At the end of the year, we have the corresponding to your August is our January.
January, yeah.
And it was a moment also that the virus was increasing here also. It was in the not a peak, but it was when it started, the war started. And we asked to people who already did tourists in Uruguay, because it was through the tourist agencies or some public or private organizations that work with tourists. They facilitate the contacts, and we make the survey through them. So it was people who already make tourists in Uruguay or were interested in it. That's it was not representative. It's ¿cómo se dice?
You don't have to say. You don't have to say.
Okay. But I really like it, and it's very different. The methodology we make in the first one, we make a factor analysis, and in the second paper we are not finished yet, but we are doing cluster analysis, and I think the results are very, very interesting now.
I'd be interested to read these things. Thank you.
More questions to Chiara, Victoria? No. Somebody wants to ask something more to Chiara or comment?
I was in. Yeah, I was reading, I was taking notes, but not question now. Thank you.
Okay, so just have a look on the notes. Chiara, do you have the trace of the visitor in the card? So what was the path?
We have not the path, but we have the recordings of the attractions that have been visited.
Ah, that are visiting. So every time he enters in the attraction, the card makes a tick, let's say.
Yes, there's a problem with discounted purchases in private shops because this could not be implemented. So we do not have this this thing. We have no recordings for the let's say cheese that you bought at a local deli and stuff like that. But all museums, all public transports, all any kind of attraction. In some, one of the problems, Gabriel, is that there were pre-existing cards before this general card was introduced, and so each district had sort of merged the previous card with this card, meaning that if you consider a tourist staying at Madonna di Campiglio, just to give you an example, is different from considering one in Cavallese or in Canazzei, because the card offers them different sets. Meaning there's a general, there's a number of attractions and museums and public transports that are free for all or discounted for all. But then in the different districts, you have also extra attractions, extra activities that are included. This is a complication that's not so nice for someone.
But the majority of the data is from Trento City, or?
No, absolutely not. It's from Val di Fassa, from...
okay.
No.
The Garda Lake, Riva del Garda.
Yes.
No, because I'm thinking that probably you can also segment the population in just concentrating in one of these where you have the majority. Because in the case you have homogeneous data, no?
That's the only empirical device you can probably use to tackle this problem. In fact, in our previous article, we concentrated on Val di Non, but the reason for Val di Non was that we have we wanted to consider if we can say that tourists are variety lovers, and in that case, since it is not a strictly mountain destination, it was easier to consider attractions of different kinds: natural attractions, cultural attractions, etc.
No, but you know, I think on the other hand, Chiara, the data set is large. Because you have a lot of it.
It's a wonderful data set.
Yeah. Sometimes this could give an additional difficulty, because when you do inference, then what you obtain is more or less the same that you have with the descriptive analysis, because of this big data, But it's very nice in the sense that you can also split this in different comparisons. I think you have do you have a team to work with this, or only you two?
Actually not.
Okay. Probably Victoria or Maria Jose or somebody can have in the future we can see if we can do something together, let's say, because I think the study is interesting, the data is interesting, and probably if you approach also, this is the people of the province, no? When they give the card of the tourist.
Marketing is the umbrella DMO.
Okay. And do you have this in Bolzano or not?
No.
No. Okay. Because probably, you know, I remember it for the economics festival, they also used it to use this card, no? It's the same card.
Yes, it's the same card. Actually, yeah.
Because, you know, I remember, Chiara, that I don't remember who, but somebody from Trento obtained also data from the credit cards associated with the people with this card. If one can do this,
Mariangela Frank, I think, worked on this long ago. I think it was before Trentino Gas Card was introduced, though.
Okay.
They used a different device and they took us a sample. They actually gave some sort of kit to some tourists who would purchase things here and there in the city during the festival. But I've never seen that. Actually, I've never seen that data set, and I've never seen anything published.
Academic works. No, yeah.
Strange.
It's strange because it's not. No, Chiara, independently on this, I was thinking that using the part of the discounts and the free entries, it could be possible to do something original that is not in the tourist literature, no?
Sure, it's a
yeah, independently of the COVID, no?
Yeah, sure. It's you have a lot of possibilities, and destination cards in general are not very much covered by the literature. So
no. So, yeah, when you know this card started on 2020. This card
started in 2014. Unfortunately, it was not compulsory for all DMOs, for all tourist districts to join in. So you have different tourist districts applying at different points in time, which makes also this quite interesting. Because, for instance, Val di Fassa only joined much later, and so not the whole area was covered every year since 14. But the first DMOs local DMOs that joined in, that was in 2014, yes.
Good.
Yes, there's a variability also in the attractions included and not included from year to year. And in the beginning, free services were much more than discounted ones, and now that's changing. I mean, some of these are complications, some of these are variability, some of these is variability you can exploit.
Chiara, what is the situation today in Trento with tourism and COVID?
Now, we completely missed the last winter season because it was impossible to open, meaning it was not possible to open it. We were not allowed to open. I mean, we were not allowed also because my family owns some self-catering accommodations, as you know, in the Dolomites. So I'm also into that. So that was very severe for many families, and think of also all the people working on the pistes and ski teachers and ski. Well, it's been a hard time. Summer was good. Summer was very good, and now everyone hopes.
But domestic tourists or international tourists?
As you know, Trentino is very different in this respect with respect to Alto Adige, and summer tourists are 90–95% domestic.
Domestic,
tourists,
yeah.
apart from Lake Garda.
Yeah. Yeah, Garda Lake is international.
Yes. Actually, we had in summer 2020, some of the answers were given also by international tourists, especially people at Lake Garda, but they were very, very few, and we decided to dismiss that and not consider them. Also because we didn't know the region and we couldn't calculate the COVID incidence. So, but yes, I would say that international tourists were not negligible in summer 2021, not as negligible as in summer 2020, meaning that people probably are confident that now that vaccines are on, that it's safe to travel internationally. But we are far from.
But you have also these barriers of Italy.
The green pass, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
because
but
it's much more difficult to enter to Italy than to enter to France or Spain or Portugal, for example.
Yes, it's true.
And Switzerland also. Switzerland is easier than Italy. But what do you think will be the next winter season?
Question
You have
mark.
no idea. Yeah?
Question mark, because up until last week, we were confident that our pandemic situation was under control, but this week it's not under control anymore due to I don't know what. But
the non-control is people that do not have the vaccine, or is it in general?
No, it's people not being vaccinated mainly, and probably immigrants for the fruit season were important in bringing in a lot of.
Okay. And you know, I also was hearing about in Austria, the situation was
yes,
worse, no?
But in Austria, the percentage of vaccinated is very low.
It's very low,
yeah. We are almost 90% now.
Yeah.
So, because of the measures they took at the beginning of October, by which you cannot go to work if you have no green pass.
Yeah. This is what I was telling you about my situation.
Yes, I know. Mm-hmm.
And so let's wait and see.
Let's wait and see and hope.
But the people of the mountain is desperate, I think, or not?
Summer was good. Summer was as good as summer 2019.
But Chiara, is in Trentino
just one season, you know?
Okay. In Trentino is the same as in Alto Adige, that the best season is summer, or not?
I would say half-half, but
half and half. Because in Alto Adige, it is more or year by year was incrementing the quantity of tourists during summer with respect to the winter. People when the people think in mountains, they think in snow and ski, but it's not the case, no?
Yes. If you consider profitability, the low summer season is
less profit.
Very low prices, and you don't find low prices in winter. So
okay.
Different from considering arrivals and and nights is different from considering profitability.
Because the carrying capacity is different also.
Yeah.
In the sense, you can have more tourists in summer than in winter, because in winter you need the particular type of accommodation, no? And you have more restricted attractions, no? Okay, so problematic. This is problematic, the situation, no? And just to add, nobody's, I'm monopolizing But if somebody wants to ask something, please put the hand open. What do you think, Chiara, could be the most important implications for planning and policy of your work?
I would say that for the industry, we found this very different significance of the hotel and self-catering accommodation dummy. And I believe that this is interesting in that it tells you that there must be some professional, a higher degree of professionalism in communicating safety. This is, I think that's the most important. I mean, you cannot change the type of destination in full, at least in the short period. Of course, you can invent yourself as a new type of destination, but it takes time, it takes new infrastructure. So for a beach destination, it's not easy to change. Rimini has changed. It's now a different story there. You don't have just beach lovers, but it takes time. But in terms of short-term lessons, I would say it's the accommodation facility industry that has to communicate safety in a professional way.
So we have to improve this part of the also the communication of the security, no? The people that come is.
My impression, knowing a lot of hotel owners, is that their idea of coping with this is, let's not mention. People want to forget. I do not think this is the right the right way to behave, because out of many, you'll always find some that actually want to be reassured.
Yeah. So this is an interesting implication, just to communicate to the agents, let's say. Now, you know, on the other hand, in Trento, you have this tradition of cooperation also. That could be an additional asset in this situation, no? Just cooperation between the different actors, no?
By cooperation, you mean here?
Cooperation in general, what I see in Trento, cooperation in terms of people that cooperate to maintain a tourist destination, for example, to.
Yes, you're right. I'll give you an example. As I told you, there's a business I'm into, and so I'm also keeping the relationships with the local DMOs, both in Val di Fiemme and in Val di Fassa. And during the first wave of the pandemic, for instance, we were in constant Zoom meetings with these people, also cooperating in buying materials such as masks that were very scarce at that time. So we joined in a purchasing group and contacted a local company you may know, La Sportiva. That's a company from Val di Fiemme who has contacts with China because they produce there. So we imported the masks from China through La Sportiva in a large group, so we could take a good price. The cooperative attitude is there, I must say.
Yeah, but because on the other hand, also, Chiara, you know that the tourism industry in Trentino and also in Alto Adige is different from the rest of Italy, because, for example, you have very few international chains, for example, hotels, just to say. So most of the business is familiar. No? It's family business. So this is, and you know,
it's an issue.
You can do it because you cooperate.
It's an issue whether this is always an advantage. meaning
But
that
you know, it is an advantage in a region where cooperation is a tradition. So it could be impossible in other parts of Italy where cooperation do not exist.
social capital.
No?
We come back again.
Yeah,
to
no, this is human capital that you have, no? And Austrian tradition, let's say.
Mhm.
Good. Somebody else want to add something? We have the paper of Chiara, so if somebody want the paper, just ask me. We can share it, and I say to the students that we have, to the young researchers, that it could be interesting to have a look again on the data that Chiara is using, and probably if you have ideas, communicate with her or with Raffaele, because you know, we have also tradition of cooperation with Chiara. Yes. Ok, Chiara, grazie mille, è stata un bellissimo seminario, e ci sentiamo anche per scambiare le cose che abbiamo. Ok?
Ok.
È stato un piacere,
Ciao.
Chiara, di averti con noi.
Adios.
Salutami al capo che non è venuto.
Strano, vabbè. Ciao.
Ciao. Bye
Ciao.
bye. Gracias a todos. Chao, chao.